Welcome to our ChemDraw Connect webinar series. My name is Lauren Orth. I'm a senior manager at Revity Signals, and I will be your moderator for this session. This ongoing ChemDraw Connect webinar series is an opportunity for you to learn about ChemDraw's features to effortlessly create eye-catching professional graphics that make your research shine. Today's topic is ChemDraw tips and tricks every secret chemist should know. Couple of housekeeping points before we jump right in. This session is being recorded and will be available for streaming at revitysignals.com/ChemDrawConnect. I will put that link in our chat. Please submit your questions during the session through the questions panel located at the top of your screen. And as always, we want to hear from you. If you have any topic suggestions for our upcoming connects, please feel free to reach out to us at signals.events@revity.com. I will also drop that email in our chat for your easy access. Now, I would like to introduce our speaker for today. Leanna Schuster graduated from Scripps College in Claremont, California with a bachelor's in chemistry and received a master's of science in organic chemistry from UCLA. She then moved to the Philadelphia area where she began work at GlaxoSmithKline as a medicinal chemist. During her 15 years at GSK, Leanna's drug discovery areas of focus range from high throughput chemistry, green chemistry, and oncology research, while also building skills in analytics, data science, and informatics. She joined Revity Signals as a field application scientist in 2022, where she supports a range of scientific software solutions. Now, I'll hand over to Leanna, who will introduce you to the topic of today's webinar.
Great, thanks, Lauren. So it's great to be with everyone today from around the globe to help you kind of upskill your ChemDraw usage and make sure that you're getting the most efficiency out of this software that you can. So a quick agenda. We'll start with some features that have been in the ChemDraw desktop software for a while, but it's possible you're not using every bit of functionality that might be useful for you, things like keyboard shortcuts and hotkeys. Then how to use ChemDraw desktop to actually enumerate out a complex generic chemical structure into a complex multi-membered chemical array. Then we'll switch over into the other half of the Signals ChemDraw platform. Signals ChemDraw is composed of ChemDraw desktop as well as ChemDraw Plus, which is our cloud-based web interface for drawing and editing chemical structures. Look at some of what we're building out in that interface and exciting new things. And while we're in ChemDraw Plus, we'll take a look at the features that are designed specifically for those of you that might be working with biopolymers like peptides and oligonucleotides. So with that said, let's go ahead and get out of PowerPoint and spend the rest of our time today really in ChemDraw itself. So we're in the ChemDraw desktop client that most of you probably know and love. And many of you are probably already taking advantage of our keyboard hotkeys so that you can draw your structures without ever having to lift your mouse to go to other parts of your toolbars, your canvas. You can just use entirely your keyboard to draw out a complex structure like this one. Let's come up here to the top of the ring. It looks like the purple group. Whoops, that's not supposed to be a methyl. Should be nitrogen. That makes more sense. Carboxylic acid. And that is the structure I intended to draw. You'll see you probably noticed up here in green in kind of the upper right of the screen, it's showing you what keystrokes I'm using in order to do some of these drawings. So if you want to try to watch the recording and follow along that way to remind yourself of how some of this works. So an alternative way I could have drawn the same structure, I could have used our name to structure tool and asked it to draw ciprofloxacin, which is a antibiotic active ingredient. Oh, did I? Yep, it would help if I spelled it correctly. There we go. And so you see that's the same molecule I just drew with the hotkeys. If you could use a reminder of all the hotkeys, the first place you should look is in your help menu for the hotkeys cheat sheet. This is a nice one-pager that I would recommend printing out, putting up on the wall near where you do most of your ChemDraw work. And it takes you through all the different hotkeys for atoms, for bonds, etc. If you're not seeing it under your help menu, if you have an older version of ChemDraw, take a look in your file menu under Open Samples, and there are two here, a hotkeys cheat sheet for either Windows or Mac OS. So I recommend taking a look at those because there's a lot of really useful, time savers. Okay, so let's say we've got this molecule drawn, but I want to use this as a starting material to do some synthesis. So rather than copying this molecule, pasting it, manually drawing a reaction arrow, you can use Control Shift and then any of the arrow keys. I'll use the right arrow key, and it will draw a reaction arrow in the direction of the key you pressed and duplicate your starting materials automatically. So now we can say, maybe we want to derivatize this free amine. How about we're going to make that just a simple saponamide. And so we've got that drawn here, but now I want to indicate what reagent I actually used to carry this out. So why don't we draw that, methyl sulfonyl chloride, and we also probably need a base. So I might just use the text tool to draw something like triethylamine. Of course, just seeing that there as free text, doesn't to our chemist's eye look quite right. So I can use the Control F shortcut to automatically add the appropriate subscripting or superscripting to make that look more like an appropriate chemical formula. Now, you may already know that if you need to select an entire molecule on your ChemDraw canvas, you can just double click anywhere on that molecule, any atom, any bond, and it will select that. But what if I want to select an entire chemical reaction? You may or not be aware that you can double click on your reaction arrow and it will automatically select all those components. Now, what if I'm going to be putting this into a report or a presentation? I want it to look a little more polished. Control Shift Z will activate, Control Shift X will activate our reaction cleanup tool. So you see the reaction arrow automatically gets scaled to fit all the reagents, and everything gets lined up nice and neat. So it makes it really quick to paste this into something like Word or PowerPoint to be able to share it with others. Let's say with this other copy of the molecule, I want to do some different chemistry. Maybe we'll just continue doing it on with this. Now, if I'd rather that this not just be a continuous reaction scheme, I can hold down Control while I drag this molecule, and it'll create a copy. From there, let's say I'm going to do an amide coupling onto this carboxylic acid. So let's draw out some sort of a aliphatamine. That looks good. And like I did before, this time I'm going to select both molecules, hit Control Shift right arrow, and we now get a reaction arrow with both of these duplicated. But now, how am I going to represent this as the amide product? You could manually draw it on the acid. You could position this amine in the right place, delete some bonds, and form the new bond. But the easiest way actually is to just select the two atoms at the reactive center where the bonds are being broken and formed, and hit Control J. That's for our join tool, and you'll see that it automatically created the coupled product. The bond angles may not look the way I'd like them to be, so I'm just going to hit spacebar to select the most recently used object on the canvas, and Control-Shift-K will do our structure cleanup. So that now looks a little bit more as I would expect. So if I now want to put this, say, into PowerPoint slides, I might want it to be a little bigger. And so I'd probably just go down to the lower right corner and start dragging this out. But you'll see if I make this really big, it starts to look like those atom labels look a little small compared to the bond lines, right? That's because they're still being represented in this case in Arial 10-point font. So I'm just going to hit undo for a second. What if I want those or rather those atom labels to increase in size as the bond lengths are increasing? If you hold down Control while you're doing that drag from the corner, now the atom labels scale along with the bonds. So you get something that's going to look even more professional, really easily to put into your presentation. And you may also be aware that, so we've seen, okay, you can draw stuff with name to structure. You can use the tools to automatically draw. But what if you have other identifiers for your molecules? Something like maybe you have a CAS number from something you're working with. Like here, nipetolactone, one of my favorite chemicals, happens to be the active ingredient in catnip. So we have a CAS number here. If I copy that and go into the add-ins menu on ChemDraw and choose this ChemACX option. ChemACX is actually a revenue signals maintained database of over 50 million commercially available chemicals. It's going to search that database and find the match for that CAS number and pull that right in a second. My internet's running a little slow today. That is on. Let's try it one more time. There we go. There is the structure of nipetolactone. Similarly, maybe instead of that that CAS number, we have something like like a PubChem entry open, or in this case, lactose. And we have the SMILE string, which is that text string representation that is equal to the chemical structure, just maybe not as human readable. So if I copy this and put it on and just directly paste it onto the ChemDraw canvas, no extra menu options needed, it will immediately recognize that as chemically relevant content and generate the corresponding chemical structure. So those can be some really easy ways to quickly populate complex chemical structures into your canvas. So now, just to get into a little bit less cluttered, I'm going to copy one of these molecules and just open a new ChemDraw canvas. Paste that on here. Because let's say, okay, we've got this ciprofloxacin. What if I'm doing some drug discovery research? I want to use this as the basis for making some variants around this common scaffold, trying to see if I can improve upon this molecule. So with my organic synthesis eyes, I immediately see there's some obvious places where this molecule could be altered. First of all, we've got a free amine here. So what if we come at it with any sort of electrophile? How about, oops, in the wrong place. There we go. How about we're using like some benzyl halides, but we probably want at least some sort of substituent on there. Maybe we'll make it a pyridyl halide. Okay, so how about we want to have this be a monosubstituted or actually disubstituted with the with this linkage here, but we want to add one more substituent to here, and we know that that could be at a variety of different places. Let's say that it could be could be at the 2 position of the pyridine, or the 3 position, or the 4 position. So I've just shift clicked to highlight all of those. And I want to represent that the substituent could be at any of those. I'm going to go to the structure menu and say to add a variable attachment. You see this little asterisk that got added, that represents the connection point for that variable substituent. And so now if I just use the standard bond tool, you see even when I mouse over here, it's representing which atoms this bond could include. And maybe I'll use that Shift N hotkey to say that this is going to be a nitro substituent. So, okay, we've started to put some variety onto this generic structure. Over here, we've got an acid. Like we said before, we could easily make that into an amide, but what if I want to represent a series of different amides that we could put there? So in order to list different options of chemical moieties that could go at a certain atom position, you'll want to use square brackets. So let's say it could be the primary amine, it could be an N-methylamine, or it could be N-dimethylamine, and close those square brackets. Okay, so we've got now 2 different points of diversity here. We've got this cyclopropyl ring up here, and we're going to want to experiment with the ring size there. That could be expanded to larger carbocycles. So in order to do that, what I want to do is basically establish a range of sizes for that ring. And so I'm going to select one of the carbons and say that that position, which right now is just a methylene group, actually could represent a range of numbers of methylenes. And so we'll use parentheses to say the repeating unit here is just a CH2. And now how many of those repeats do I want? We'll start with 1, which would be the cyclopropyl, and let's go up, let's say, to 3 to include cyclobutyl and cyclopenyl. All right, so this is all looking pretty good. Let's say one more thing. We want to describe some more complex substituent possibilities. Let's say at this unsubstituted position. And so I'm going to say that is my R1. But now what does R1 actually look like? Well, it's not just a simple atom or things that could be easily described with shortcuts like or abbreviations like these. And so I want to actually draw out possibilities for R1. To do that, we use this alternative group tool. I'm going to draw out a table for that and label that as R1. It's going to automatically know that there's an R1 up here, and so these 2 things are linked. If you're trying to do this and you don't see this in your toolbar, it's probably because you need to go to the View menu, go down to Other Toolbars, and make sure that the Query Tools is visible. So let's draw some possible substituents here. How about something like methyl ether, or maybe how about trifluoromethylalkene? And we need to tell ChemDraw now which of the atoms in these options that we've drawn is where we're actually attaching at R1. And so just mouse over the atom of interest, hit your period key, and it's going to indicate that that is the insertion point. So we've drawn out a lot of different variations here. Once I ask ChemDraw to enumerate this to the list of individual molecules, I'd like it to be a little bit visually obvious what I'm looking at, because it can be difficult to parse a large number of just plain black and white structures. So we have our ring fill and bond highlight options. So let's say I would like to have this pyridine ring be filled in as, I don't know, red. And that nitro group, I want it to be highlighted, let's say yellow. That expanding ring, let's make that, say, a purple highlight. This variable, an amide, let's choose, let's say, a green highlight. And then I want to be able to quickly visually differentiate between my ether and my alkene. So let's say that the ether is going to be a bright blue and the alkene is going to be orange. All right, so that all looks very well and good on this page, but it's starting to get a little bit difficult to be, human readable as to what all these options actually entail. So what I can do now is just select the generic structure as well as any accompanying tables of substituents. Go to the structure menu and choose expand generic structure. So it now is going to tell me, okay, this represents 54 distinct molecules. It is running through each of those variable elements of the generic structure. And here we go. We now have a document with 54 separate molecules. You can see that nitro group walking around the ring. Here, para to the pyridyl nitrogen, here at the 3 position and the 2 position. We can see the green of the varying amide groups. All of the methyl ethers are bright blue. All of the trifluoromethylalkenes are orange. All the ones on the screen right now, the purple area are cyclopropanes, but if I go down a page, we'll see, okay, now we've got some cyclobutyls. And if I go down further, there's our cyclopentols. You see, this makes it a lot easier to just visually parse what's going on throughout the array, and can also be really nice for including in presentations like in your PowerPoint slides. So with all this said, I think we've shown you some good tips and tricks in ChemDraw Desktop. Let's take a look at what we can do in our web platform. So if I bring over here just a standard web browser. Okay, this is my Signals homepage. It shows me all of the apps that I personally have permission to use. And I'm going to click into ChemDraw Plus, that web component of Signals ChemDraw. So you'll see here I go to a home dashboard, which I can have certain things favorited. I can automatically create new ChemDraw canvases from style sheets, and I can quickly see what my recent drawings are. I also can go straight to just looking at a view of all of those chemical drawings. I can mouse over any of these previews to get a larger look at what's going on there. Any of these that might be of interest. And furthermore, I can search within these. I can do a text search based on the names or the text within, but probably more significantly, I can do a chemical structure-based search. So let's say we want to look for, there we go, some 5-membered aromatics. Let's say we've got, I know I have some structures with paroles that I want to find, but maybe I'm also working on some similar analogs that are pyrazoles. So I can go to this position and use those same square brackets that we used previously. There we go. And say that this could be a carbon or a nitrogen. Close square brackets. Do my search. And we've gotten back 16 results. We can see here in this synthetic scheme, we see there are some, excuse me, some paroles. There are also, here we have a pyrazole. And actually, let's click in to look at that one in a little bit more detail. So one thing you'll notice in ChemDraw Plus is we have an infinitely sized canvas here. I can keep scrolling horizontally or vertically as far as I need to. There's no need to like add new pages or resize the canvas because you just keep drawing and drawing as much as you need, and the canvas will expand to fit what the content that you are adding. Now, this molecule, you may have already noticed there's a couple of chiral centers that are not currently annotated as to what the stereochemistry might be at those positions. So let's say I go in with my hotkeys and I say those should actually both be wedges. And so now we've given a better idea about this, but you might want to be really explicit that maybe what you're actually trying to represent is relative stereochemistry, or maybe these are absolute stereocenters and you want it to be 100% clear to other users that that's what you're representing. So you can open up the side panel in ChemDraw Plus. I'll mention, I need to select my molecule. There we go. And in the analysis tab here, we get some useful basic information like the IUPAC name, molecular weight, SMILE string. Now, if I go over to guided stereochemistry and say I want to add some advanced stereochemical annotations, it has automatically detected at carbons 8 and 10 that there are stereocenters, and is currently assuming based on what I've drawn that these are pure and known absolute configurations. If I want that to be really explicit on the canvas, I can go ahead and say, yes, that is an S known absolute configuration, and it's now, make this a little bigger, there we go. Added the S designator and the absolute stereochemistry annotation. Or maybe alternatively, these are relative. I want to say that this is an S pure stereocenter, or rather, it's a pure stereocenter, but we actually don't know if it's S or R. What matters is its relative stereochemistry with respect to another atom, which might be this, in this case, carbon 10. And so this one is pure but unknown relative to the carbon 8. And so that we now have the OR advanced stereochemistry annotation. So you can use the guided stereo editor to really define any sort of complex either mixture or specific stereochemistry that you have in any of your structures. And that can be really useful in when you're sharing these molecules to make sure that it is unambiguously understood what the nature is of the chemicals that you might be working with. Okay, so I'm going to close that side panel up to get us a little bit of more space. Let's scroll down a little bit in that canvas. And we mentioned we wanted to look at biopolymers. So to work with biopolymers, down here at the bottom is our Helm editor. And there's a variety of options here. So if I go over to the peptide tab, let's say we start on natural monomers, we have all of your naturally occurring amino acids. Decrease the size of this canvas a little bit. You can see from that cursor, it's going to be some really big amino acids. There we go. And I can just start clicking away. If I mouse over any of these in the editor, it's going to show me what the chemical structure is and what the connectivity is to other monomers in the chain. I get the same thing if I mouse over in an actual drawing. It's going to remind me of the name of that amino acid and its full chemical structure. If you're working with non-natural amino acids, we have a lot already defined for you in the system, including like the Signals monomer library has things that we've found that have been fairly standardized in the literature. So I can include some more complex possible amino acids, just that represent some of these structures that are not found in nature but might be really important in your research group. So it can be very useful, like I said, to either search through or scroll through and find the individual amino acids you're looking for. But sometimes you already know a sequence of monomers and you just want to be able to enter them all at once. So you can go over to the text tab and well, actually, first I'll just mention on the DNA, RNA, we have, of course, the same options here that you can look at things based on the different DNA bases, different variants in your phosphate or your ribose, using both natural and non-natural options. Now, with either peptide or oligos, if you have a FASTA strain you want to put in, let's say FASTA peptide, and you put in something like the word ChemDraw, it is able to interpret that as a FASTA strain. And we now have that fully able to work with. Maybe instead of something relatively small like this, you're working with a more complex something like this ubiquitin chain that's in the NIH protein database. So I can just copy that and go ahead and say that that's the peptide I want to put in. I'm going to close the Helm editor for a second to gain us some real estate. There we go. It's down a little bit. Okay, a little smaller so you can actually see that all there. So you see that entire sequence was represented and automatically wraps to the next line in order to be able to see it all in the canvas. So representing the amino acids is certainly useful, but what if I want to use a biopolymer as the start of doing additional chemical modification? So just like you're probably used to being able to expand text abbreviations for something like pH for phenol, you can toggle in ChemDraw between the depiction of the phenyl ring or the letters pH. You can do the same thing here with your amino acids. So how about this lysine? I want to expand that. So I just go to the expand label and it now is showing the full chemical structure for that lysine. And if I need to make any chemical modifications, I can go right ahead and do that from here. And just keep drawing using all my normal drawing tools. I will mention that if you have not made chemical modifications, you can interconvert these all you want between, say, if I expand out this threonine, but then I decide later, no, wait, I want to put that back in that Helm cartoon form, I just go back to now contract label, and it goes right back into that Helm cartoon. So it's really easy to go back and forth, all you need. And it's also, if you need to show cross links either between peptides or intramolecularly within, like, say, a cyclic peptide type structure, you just use your standard bond tool. Oops. Just your normal single bond tool that you're all used to using. And maybe I'm going to do something like, excuse me, sorry, Don. To take one of these, like this aspartic acid, for example, and I know that has a free carboxylic acid, so what if that cyclized back onto the amine terminus? in this case, it's smart enough to see, wait, that amino-terminus amino acid actually has another point where it could possibly connect off the cysteine. And we'll say, no, I got it, you got it right the first time, ChemDraw. I want it to connect to that amine. I'll say connect, and you see now we have that curved line bond indicating the cyclization within the peptide. Similarly, if I want to do something intramolecularly, I could take, let's see, let's make this a little smaller again, and something like, let's see over here, I believe we've got a cysteine, we've got a cysteine here. I want to make a disulfide. So I just draw that bond, and it is going to represent it in that curved linear bond format, which is the standard for peptide linkages. So that all is very useful for peptides. What if you're working in the oligo world? So let's say I'm here in FASTA DNA, and I want to put in something like CGT AAT. Insert. And we've now inserted not just single monomers like with the amino acids, but the full triplets of your sugar, your phosphate, and your oligo base. Just like before, I can mouse over any of those to see what its chemical structure and connection points look like. I can expand or contract this using the same tools to the fully elaborated chemical structure. I also have the option with oligos to automatically generate the complementary strand. And I'm going to close that Helm editor for a second to show that also if we had that same side panel open, this time the analysis window is going to recognize that this is not just a small molecule that's highlighted, it's actually a biosequence. Contains, in this case, 6 oligomonomers. And this time, instead of a SMILE string, it's going to tell us the FASTA string and the Helm text protocol string. So you've got all of those available at your fingertips. In addition, you can go into properties and say, I want to show the 5' and 3' ends. And you've got those annotations added. And furthermore, I want to say this strand is my antisense strand, and this one is my sense strand. And we've got those annotations now added on, see the SS and the AS to indicate that. Now, using that expansion to the full chemical structure, if I do that with a base pair, in my double-stranded DNA, it will do the expansion as expected, and it will even indicate exactly where the hydrogen bonds are between those two nucleotide bases. So you get a lot of information with a very low effort. Just just generating the chemical structure, and you automatically know a lot of extra richness about this particular biopolymer. Okay, I think one other thing I would like to show briefly before we open it up to Q&A, and that's that maybe you have text content that you're getting perhaps from a experimental in a patent or a journal article, or from any other source that you want to be able to represent something like one of these chemically. So in ChemDraw Plus, if you have something like this abbreviated form for tetrakis palladium, and just hit Control-V to paste that onto Canvas, it is going to recognize that this represents chemical content and will display it as such. Now, what about if I use something from that list like tempo? So you might all be expecting it's just automatically going to give us the oxidizing reagent, right? And the thing is, ChemDraw is even smarter than that. It's going to look at this and say, wait, you might have meant two different things here. Maybe you wanted to get that radical oxidant. Paste one more time, but also, wait, those are all letters that can be part of a peptide string. So maybe you actually meant this peptide with those corresponding amino acids. So it tries to look for all the possible reasonable ways to chemically interpret the text that you're pasting in, so that you're not, missing out on the representation that you are actually trying to achieve. So I hope that everything we've shown both in ChemDraw Desktop and in ChemDraw Plus has sparked some ideas for you when you go back to your own version of ChemDraw to start making your own drawing experience a little bit more, even more valuable to you than it already is. And I will put up this QR code on the screen, which will take you to a page where you can request a trial of ChemDraw. So if you want to be able to try out some of the latest and greatest, please feel free to scan that code and sign up for the ChemDraw trial. And with that, I think we can open it up to any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you, Leanna. We have some questions coming in on the chat. I also encourage everyone to continue to ask questions. We have some time here to get to a few of them, so please continue to put them in the questions area of GoToWebinar. The first one, Leanna, a bunch of people are asking what version of ChemDraw that is, and how can people check to see what version they have?
Okay, so my ChemDraw is actually that I was showing in the desktop is Signals ChemDraw, and if you go into the Help menu and go to About ChemDraw, it will tell you what the version number is. So mine is, when you have Signals ChemDraw, you're automatically getting the latest released versions as they come out. So this is 25.0. But if you have an older version, a lot of what we showed here today is still, could be accessible. It really is going to depend on the specific version number. And feel free to follow up with us if you have specific questions about some of the features and in terms of whether that is accessible in your version of ChemDraw.
Great, thank you. Next question. What if my team uses our own customized peptide monomers?
That's a good question. So actually we have a tool in ChemDraw Plus that is specifically for that. And it's called the Monomer Curation app. So you can go in there and create at any point a brand new library of monomers that could contain amino acids. It could contain DNA and RNA monomers. It could even contain other types of chemistry that you use in a repetitive polymeric way. And those can be separated into as many libraries as you want, and those would be automatically shared across everyone on your Signals ChemDraw interface.
Great. Next question. Is there a list of shortcuts that I can print out? I have ChemDraw Prime. Can I use shortcuts and hotkeys?
So yes, shortcuts and hotkeys absolutely should still be available to you. So if you're, depending on what version number you're on, you may find it under the Help menu where it says Hotkeys cheat sheet. There's also, I didn't show before, there's also a shortcuts cheat sheet that takes you through like what the series of keystrokes is that you would need to do some entire manipulations of structures. So that kind of might help you see how to put the things from the hotkeys cheat sheet into action. If you're on an older version, you're not seeing it in your help menu, go to your file menu to open samples. And then there's our hotkey cheat sheets for both the Mac and Windows OS.
Great. All right, next question. Which tool brings about fragmentation information from a peptide?
I think we may need to get a little bit more information as to what you're looking for there. So let's we'll follow up with you offline on that question. It's a good question. I just want to make sure we're addressing what you're looking for.
Perfect. And if the person who asked that can put a little more info to their question, we'll try to get back to it. Let's see. Can we draw peptides using one letter without the circle around it or 3-letter abbreviations?
So there are options. Why don't I just open a new in here? So there, like even in ChemDraw Desktop, there are different style sheets that can. So there are ways to carry that out. Basically, you can create style sheets that do just all black and white if you don't prefer to have the colored circles. And those you also can choose to have the single letter or 3-letter abbreviations for each amino acid. So yeah, those are absolutely available.
Perfect. Next question. Can we use ChemDraw to draw a hypothetical structure that organic synthetic chemists can synthesize?
Well, you can draw any sort of structure, theoretical or known. I suspect what this question may be getting at is like breaking down how to make that molecule, and that is not within ChemDraw's feature set. But doing ideation and coming up with all kinds of cool molecular designs that have never been made, absolutely go for it.
Next question. What happens when you import Helm strings into ChemDraw? Does it automatically generate the visual structure?
Sure. So if you have a Helm string, so let me just show you. First, I'm just going to explicitly put this into a text box so you can see, because not everyone may be familiar with what a Helm text string looks like. So it's basically separating, in this case it's for a peptide, separating each amino acid by in this case periods, putting them in square brackets if they're non-natural amino acids. So if I had not specifically opened a text tool, but had just hit Control-D with this on my clipboard, then yes, it will. Did I just hit the wrong thing? Oh, there we go. It just took a second. It did just generate and recognizes that as chemically aware content, just like a smile string.
Great. Next question. How can we use the artificial amino acid with natural amino acids for the design of peptides and proteins?
Sure. So why don't honestly, you can do this in either ChemDraw Desktop or in here in ChemDraw Plus. I just happen to really like the interface here. So with peptides, you can absolutely go back and forth between natural and non-natural amino acids. You can start building out a chain with maybe some of these, but then I'm using my arrow keys, and you see how that like the highlight box and then the little blinking cursor on the bond is changing. So let's say, oh, maybe I forgot I wanted to insert something here and I want it to not be a natural monomer. Maybe it's something that's been agreed upon by the Destroy Alliance. So I want to put this in there and it'll insert. Or maybe I realize that this asparagine was actually wrong. I want to just write right over the top of that and make like this methyl leucine. So you can absolutely mix and match natural and non-natural very easily.
Great. Next question. Can I use a custom peptide sequence in FASTA format as a monomer to initiate molecular docking? Two-part question, Leanna, sorry. And how can I save or export the structure using ChemDraw?
Okay, so so FASTA sequences themselves, the kind of the definition of a FASTA sequence expects that you're using the naturally occurring amino acid alphabet. However, with those helm strings, like we showed a second ago, I think it's still on my clipboard, so I can paste that in to ChemDraw Plus as well. That it is going to recognize the helm string version of that. Oh, I must have put it somewhere else on the canvas, didn't it? So I've got a bunch of stuff covered up. But so when you had something like this text string, so that would be the way to bring in things that have both natural and non-natural in a line of text rather than, excuse me, rather than as a chemical structure. And Ryan, the second part of the question was
how to export.
Sorry, what was that?
What's the best way to export?
Oh, for exporting, yes, thank you. Okay, so there's a variety of ways depending on what you're trying to export. If what you're exporting is something like, maybe, let's see, one of these windows here was this that has a ton of different structures, then maybe I want to save this as an SD file. So you can just go to Save As and choose that the file type you want is an SD file rather than a ChemDraw file. You can also actually, when you enumerate it, choose to expand generic to an SDF, and then we'll just automatically create an SDF file. But if we're talking in the biopolymer realm, then we're probably more likely to want to be able to bring this into other applications. So something like any thing, whether small molecule or biopolymer, we have both in desktop and ChemDraw Plus a variety of copy as options. So you can copy this as the smile string. You can copy it as the helm string. If this was appropriate for FASTA, in this case, because there are non-natural amino acids, it's not giving you that as an option. So basically, it gives you a whole variety of different things. You can even get like the Mol 3000 text block. So there's a variety of ways to export that and be able to use it in other applications.
Great, thank you. Next question. We have time for a few more, so please keep sending them if you got them. Can the B and Y fragmentations be shown as annotations on the structure drawing?
I think we'll have to follow up with you on that. I think that maybe might have been related to that first question I said we would follow up on, because they sound related, yes. But maybe it's more from people independently.
Great. Yep, we will follow up afterwards. Next question. What is the fastest way to draw a chemical mechanism, usually multi-step reaction circle in ChemDraw? Are there specific templates suggested?
Sure. So there are, and obviously it's going to depend on how complex your mechanism is. Are we talking about like a catalytic cycle or, but there are a lot of different things in addition to just your standard arrows. When you, I'm pulling down my mouse on this is a pop-up, and we get options for different kinds of circular arrows, equilibrium arrows, radical single electron movement. And so what I would recommend probably is, draw out your basic reaction scheme first, and then probably start going with some of these curved arrows to represent what you want. You can, of course, change the size of these. You can expand them out, or even go in and like edit the points, individual points are of this to change how much curvature and such there is. I think by mixing and matching with those different arrows there, you can really quickly get some pretty nice looking mechanism drawings pretty quickly.
Great, thank you. Next question. Are there any limits for the generic structure generators for how many it can create? Hundreds or thousands?
I do not believe there are limits that I'm aware of. It just will take a little bit more time, the more molecules that you're generating. But you saw there that was what 50 some odd, and it was just a matter of a few seconds. So it's you know, if you're getting up into the thousands, it might take a couple minutes.
Great, thank you. That's it from the question side. If we didn't get to yours, we will follow up after this webinar. There were also a few questions coming in about the recording, and it will be sent out after this call, and you can always find them on that link I submitted in the chat earlier. That has all of our ChemDraw Connects on demand. So you can find all of them there and sign up for future ChemDraw Connects. There'll be one more this year. And that's it from our side. Really, thank you so much, Leanna. This was a great presentation. Thank you everyone for attending, and we will follow up with any questions we didn't get to and the recording shortly. Thank you, everyone.